Hi everyone! So in today's tutorial, we're going to walk through how to create this text painting of this flower. So to get started, the first thing you want to do is go to File, Open. You're going to be looking for the Technique Practice Flower. You should have downloaded this onto your Google Drive, so that way it's easy for you to access. So go ahead and click Open, and this is the template that you are going to be working from. Alright, so this is our background image, so keeping this background locked is a good idea, so that way it doesn't get altered or changed. So the first thing that you'll want to do is we're going to create text for all the individual pieces. Now when you're working on your final, you're going to want to work in sections. So you may want to work on one small part or one small aspect and kind of work in a cyclical pattern. So first step is I'm going to grab the text tool, click, I'm going to delete and type in, I'm going to do petal. So I particularly really like this font, but you can also change your font if you like. Scroll over that, and there are lots of different options to choose from. So once you find a font that you really like, I'm going to stick to what I have. You want to then make sure, since I have 6 petals, I want to make 6 copies of this layer. So I'm going to take my layer, drag it down towards the bottom, and hover over this little box with a plus sign in it. This will create a copy of your layer. So I'm just going to move this down. Alright, so I want to go back to my first petal, and what I'm going to do is I now want it to kind of fit the petals that are going around the flower. So to do that, you're going to use the transform tool. You can access that by Control T and reduce the size. Now, one thing to keep a note of is if you're not holding down any other buttons, you'll notice that when I change or scale the size, everything stays in proportion. Well, what if you want to actually squish or stretch your text? Hold down that Shift key, and you can squish and stretch your text to fit roughly the size of that petal. Alright, so that looks pretty good. It's pretty close to the size. The next step is we're going to be warping all of those things. So before I do that, I'm going to repeat this step with the rest of my text. Alright, so at this point I have all of my text and it is placed where I'd like it. So the next step is you want to rasterize your text. So you're probably wondering, how do I rasterize my text and why? So what you're going to need to do is on each layer, you're going to right click, look for rasterize type. So the reason why you want to rasterize your type is because the next tool you're going to be utilizing is called the warp tool. The warp tool will not work, so you can find that warp tool going to edit, transform, warp. The warp tool will not work if the layer is not rasterized. So you need to make sure that your layer is rasterized before you warp. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and rasterize my type for all of my layers. With each layer, I'm then going to go to Edit, Transform, Warp, and I'm going to then use these little, so these are angle markers that I can kind of move and manipulate. And then the points on the end is where I can kind of warp the text to really fit the space of the shape that I'm utilizing. So really try to fit the shape as best you can. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, but it's helping to describe overall that shape. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this process with all of my layers. As you can see, I have manipulated all of my text to format to the style and shape of each of the different elements, the petal, the center of the flower, and the stem. So the last thing that you want to do is add color. So there are a couple of different ways that you can do this. You can go through each and individual layer and actually paint them separately, or you can paint them in chunks. So in order to do that, you want to come over here to your layers. You want to right click, so this little preview box or the image box, right click on that, and you're going to go up to select pixels. So by selecting the pixels in here, I can now change the color. I'm going to go with maybe a pinkish tone. And I can paint all of my individual letters, and I can do it that way. Another option is I'm going to do the gradient tool. So this will give me a really nice gradation of color. So what I want to do is I'm going to double click on this rainbow, and I'm going to click on the little cursor down here, click on the colors, that way I can change the color. Maybe a darker-ish pink tone. And then the color out here, I'll change it to kind of maybe a really soft, subtle yellow. Let's make that a little more yellowy. There we go. So now I can click and drag, and as you can see, it's creating a sense of shading on that petal. So I'm going to deselect that by coming over here. You'll see the rectangle marquee tool, or any of these marquee tools will let you deselect those marching ants. So as you can see, this creates a really nice gradation of tone and color. And I'm going to repeat this process with all of the aspects of my work once again. Alright, so I have finished all of the different elements. So if I hide my background, now I can really see it. I want to make sure that I can really see everything. So I want to create a new background. So I'm going to go to my background layer and add a new layer on top of that. And I think I'm just going to do a simple black background. You can make it any color you like. Just try to keep it something that would contrast your text. So now I want to go back through and do a quick pass and edit, like fine tune some of my petals, and clean this up just a little bit. Alright, and there you have it. There is your text painting for the flower. Just a couple of things too. So if there's another method I want to show you really quickly. So that method means that I need to group my sections together. So if I want to just paint all of the petals, I'm going to select all of my petal layers and Control G, and it will also create a group for you. So I want to keep my original group, so I'm going to make an extra copy of it. So now I'm going to rename that group. I double click on that, the petals. And what I want to do now, I'm going to hide it. I'm going to right click. I'm going to merge my group. So one of the things you'll notice is that now all of my petals are together on one layer. Now if I want to, let's say, paint, I can grab my paintbrush. Alright, and I can change the color. So now I'm going to change it a little bit more drastically to maybe a darker purple. So that way you can really see my painting. And the purpose, or one of the benefits of doing this, is it lets you go back in and push some of your value. You can also soften some of this by softening the opacity on your paintbrush. I can also make a duplicate copy. So I'm gonna hide this one underneath and add my purple to the center. And then what I can do is I can lower the opacity on it. So with my layer visible underneath, lower that opacity, and then you get this really nice fade and transition in the center. So once you're all done with your flower, please make sure you go to File and save it. We want to save it first as on demo and practice. So save both your Photoshop file, and you want to go to Image or Layer. And go to Layer, Flatten Image here near the bottom. Click on that. I'm going to flatten the entire image. And then go to File. Now this is really important that you go to Save As. And I'm going to save it as a JPEG. So make sure that you save your work as a JPEG with your name. Click OK. So there you have it. Thanks for watching.